28 years old. I'm from Palestine. Originally, I'm from Palestine, but at the minute I'm living in a small place in the West Bank called Beta. But originally, I'm one of the destroyed villages called Tantura, which is near Haifa, and my village were destroyed in 1948 in the war between the Israelis and the Palestinians. And I'm living as a refugee in my own country.
My name's Orla Brennan. I was 18 in February and I live in Ballavoy, which is just outside Ballycastle. The region of Ballavoy is a rural community. It's mainly in the countryside. There isn't very many amenities in that if you want the bus service or to go anywhere, you would have to go to Ballycastle, which would be about an hour's walk.
As a situation, it is horrible. It is unbelievable situation. It is so difficult to live in this country as Palestinian. I mean, because we are living under the Israeli occupation. So sometimes there is a curfew, sometimes there is a tax, sometimes the checkpoints are closed. So you don't know exactly what's going on with you. You may decide tomorrow to go to your work to other place, but then you will find the checkpoints are closed, so you will not manage to pass.
Ballycastle is one of the, I think, worst rates in the whole of Northern Ireland of unemployment. There has been schemes to get people back into work, but it's just in Ballycastle there isn't really the industries large enough to cope with all those young people to employ them, so they quite frequently leave.
One of my university, a student of my university, unfortunately, have been killed in the mountain, and that was really so difficult for us, for everybody who was on the mountain at that day. And it was women, children, old people, and a lot of students, because that was the only way that you can go to the university.
Corrymeela works in peace and reconciliation, but I don't think that's no longer just Catholic and Protestants. It's also multicultural, that there's also divisions there that need to be broken so that people accept other cultures, because for such a long time there hasn't really been a multicultural in Northern Ireland, but now that the troubles are sort of easing, people are coming in, but I think there's still sort of barriers there between people that need to be broken between those cultures.
My name's Bronwyn Bandawi. I'm 26 years old and I'm from Cape Town, South Africa.
My name's Ellen Diver. I'm 16 and I'm from Derry on the northwest of Northern Ireland.
My name is Lena. I am 22 years old and I come from Jordan, Amman.
The area that I was born and raised in is in the townships of the Cape Flats. Townships are economically deprived areas far from the city centre where non-whites were moved to during the apartheid regime. So I grew up in an area called Mitchell's Plain, and it's pretty similar. Most of the townships in Cape Town are similar. So during apartheid, we were moved according to our race, the colour of our skin or our race group. I'm what was known as coloured, or half-breed, or whatever other names you want to give us.
I'm an elected member of the Shadow Council, which is a youth version of the City Council. So the issues that I work with are mainly issues pertaining to young people. Specifically, we work with minority groupings in the city and try to ensure they're represented as well as possible. We also would work to try and lobby for things for young people in the city, like more facilities. There's actually a real lack of facilities within the city itself. And if you're under 18, there's nowhere to go at night because the only places to go are pubs or nightclubs where alcohol is served.
Coloured and black people lived in townships, but the townships are very different. They all economically deprived, yet coloured people were always sort of seen to have been given or been treated a bit better than black people. So I'd say the townships are pretty much still the same as they must have been back in the 50s when people were moved there, or possibly even worse. So it's gang and drug driven. I'll say driven, but it's not entirely just about that. There's a lot of like very strong, spirited people.
To be honest, there's not a lot to do for young people, and I think the boredom leads to people buying alcohol and doing drugs and vandalism.
You would actually have to experience living there, but even if you experience living there, that is still not the most sufficiently candid view of the country.
I am Bonita Blankenberg. I am 23 years old and I'm from Hanover Park in Cape Town, South Africa.
My name is Tanyeli Sabuncu. I'm from Turkey. I'm a student. I'm studying international relations in my last year.
Hanover Park is a it's not very affluent. It's actually one of those areas where poverty is a big obstacle. It's also one of the areas where many people who, due to the apartheid law in our country, were moved, like many coloured people like myself.
My name is Yaron. I'm 22 years old and I'm from Israel.
My name's Alexander, or Zandy Craig. I'm 20 years old and I'm from Ballycastle, which is Northern Ireland.
Okay, I'm Diana from Croatia. I'm 26.
My name is Denise. I'm 20 years old. I'm from Palestine.
It's hard to describe Israel. Well, it's the Holy Land and it's really divided. It's really divided country. Like we've got the Palestinians issues, which is they are not part of Israel. They are like live in Palestine, but we control them, and like some people will consider Palestine to be part of Israel borders. So this is this issue, and we've got the Israeli Arabs, the Israeli Palestinians, who are not really part of our culture. Like they don't really count where they should be.
The people have become a lot more diverse in the sense of over the past couple of years through the Troubles and various things like that. You've had the Catholic Protestant divide, but it's been an awful lot of kind of I guess a white population, I would say. And over the past, say, 10 years, there's been an awful lot more ethnic diversity, which has been fantastic. So if you walk through Belfast now, there's an awful lot more people from all over the world, which is very, very interesting and has both a positive and, I guess, I wouldn't say negative effect on the culture, but there are certain tensions there which didn't exist before, which now exist between race rather than necessarily sectarianism, which is quite interesting.
Croatia is a small country. It has only 4.5 million inhabitants. But in the eastern part, it has beautiful flat land, so we grow corn there and things like that. And we also have the mountains and the beautiful coastline. So it's a really nice land to live in, especially if you are the one who has a job.
We actually have it fairly well off to some extent in the in how much you can travel and how easy it is to travel or even getting jobs. It's not, being from Northern Ireland doesn't have a particularly negative effect particularly.
Most of the people won't have the knowledge to realize that we're having a problem with the Israeli Arabs, the Israeli Palestinians. Like most of the people aren't aware to that. So the main big problem is the issue between Palestine and Israel. And now at this time Israel is getting her small colonies out of the Gaza Strip. So this is like the biggest issues to all ages.
Because so many people all over the world get the bad news, they have quite a negative perception of Northern Ireland, whereas I would say there's an awful lot of good things that go on in Northern Ireland as well. I'd say the people are very friendly generally, except with each other occasionally. So yeah, I guess I would say it as being fairly, although it's part of the United Kingdom and part of it's still considered, as far as I know from travelling quite Irish. So there's still quite a bit of Irish culture knocking around and all that kind of stuff. So that would be Northern Ireland.
I think what interests the youngs are like the education system, and the government doesn't give enough money to the universities, and we you do have a good education in Israel, but you need to be from a high class to get it. And I think it's a big issue as well.
Well, here it's kind of traditional to view yourself as either Irish or British. It's not like in England where you can be English and British. Here you're one or the other, which is a bit ridiculous really, but it's the way things are. I suppose I would be Irish, coming from an Irish family, speaking the Irish language too. It tends to be related to your religion. If you're a Catholic, you would generally identify yourself as Irish, and if you're a Protestant, you would identify yourself as British. I prefer not to apply the label to myself. I'm proud to be Irish, but I'm also proud to be part of the UK, and I don't see any reason why I can't be both.
I'm living in Palestine, but I'm a refugee because I cannot go to my family, to my original place. So first of all, I think we still have our right to go back to our home, to our places, to our own villages, to our own cities. And these are the Palestinians who are at the minute living outside Palestine. They should have the right to decide or to come back or to stay outside of Palestine.
I mean, one of the major issues that we try not to talk about, but that is so very much there, is Jordan's demographic formula. A big part of the population is of Palestinian origin because of the Arab-Israeli conflict, and so many people came in 1948 and 1967. But it just and so there's always been a lot of questions about if Jordan was ever meant to be a political entity. Was there ever a political entity throughout history that was known to be, like Jordan, or is it just an extension of Palestine, or is it just, and for politicians in Jordan, this has been a big fear because they didn't want Jordan to sort of become the alternative homeland of all the Palestinians that Israel just didn't want there, that kind of thing.
I think we're part of mentally united. Like, despite all the borders and all the checkpoints, we are really mentally united. Like, when I met the guys and my delegation here, I didn't think about that I didn't see them before. I felt like I know them, but the main thing for the point of the borders, it's really hard for us because we want to go to the West Bank and to continue working with the whole group, but we can't. So physically, it's really important. And if you are speaking about a political situation or something like that, it will be so difficult to have physical borders.
A lot of the countries that are represented here are share sort of similar, some similar, some different social problems, and I think the one sort of common thread has been contested spaces. So to a degree, I have been reflecting about that sort of aspect, whereas we've come out of a big struggle. Obviously, our struggles are different today, but we've taken a huge leap forward, and so things are changing within the country, and therefore I think that we do sort of play a small part in sort of sharing that kind of positive contribution towards sort of reconciliation. I think that's something that we've experienced in our country with the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, which is a formula that I think is controversial with different people, especially people that lost loved ones during the struggle, because it was the notion of reconciling and sort of not forgetting but forgiving, people that sort of caused you much pain and sort of the kind of pain that cannot be given back, but I think that South Africans have worked through that process, and so I think that is something that we can share with other countries that are still trying to sort of break that gap or take that leap forward.
If we talk about borders and boundaries in Croatia, I think they're more mental because I live in the eastern part, so we have a border with Serbia, and the war, which was in 91, it was between Croatia and Serbia. So in the eastern part, there is Serbian minority who has their right they have a special letter, it's Cyrillic letter. So the children of Serbian nationality go to school and they have books in Cyrillic letter, but they don't mix with Croatian children. So we have 2 shifts in school. In the morning, Croatian pupils go, and in the afternoon, Serbian pupils go.
When I was trying to get a visa to come here, the first time they rejected my application. And I was like, out of all people, how could they reject my application? I mean, I'm just a peaceful young person who has been invited to an international youth camp. And then I was thinking about this whole concept of visas, you know, of having to get a visa to go somewhere. And how I mean, young people in Europe can just decide to go backpacking, you know, from Istanbul to Salzburg and then to, I don't know, wherever. But where we are, you just have to get a visa to go almost anywhere. And that's just a very disturbing thing.
The parents of either Croatian or Serbian children, they have a say. So they say, okay, I want my child to mix with Croatians or Serbians, or I don't want that. So I think it's not that children want to go to separate classes.
To go down south, those boundaries that were there maybe 10 years ago aren't visible, so you can just drive across, which in that sense that those boundaries are no longer there, except then you have a different currency as well when you cross over, even though you're in the same island.
There is a saying of Haydar Aliyev, Azerbaijan and Turkey are one nation, two states. That describes the situation, I think, about Azerbaijan and Turkish relations. But when you look at Armenia, it is totally different, actually, because of the things that happened right after the First World War, or not right after the First World War, in the times of First World War. I'm talking about those so-called genocide issue. There is no, actually at all, there is no relation between Armenia and Turkey. The borders are closed and there is no trade. And both societies are talking differently, thinking differently about this genocide issue.
I think that Croatia can really benefit from the European Union if we enter European Union. But since the war ended in 13 years ago, people still have a strong feeling of their nationality. So the majority of Croatian population thinks that if we enter the European Union, if we get European citizenship, then we will lose a part of our Croatian nationality.
I see myself as an Israeli who wants to be a citizen of the world. Like, I am an Israeli. I've got like the Israeli mentality, but the Jewish Israeli mentality. It's a different mentality than the Arabs. But I don't consider myself as Jewish. I am in blood, and I do have the Jewish history, but I'm not religious.
When you look to the news, you don't see exactly what's happening. Like, I've never been a queue of hundreds of Palestinians just waiting on a checkpoint to pass on the international media. But if anything happened in Israel, you will see this. If anything happened to any Israeli soldier or any Israeli settler who lives in Palestine illegally, in his illegal settlement in Palestine, anything happened for them, you will see this in the international media. But For us as a Palestinians, every day there is a killed people, every day there is attacks, every day there is a curfews, every day there is people who are suffering so much, but you will never see this in the international media, you know. I don't know I don't know why. I don't know who's responsible for that. I don't know where's the answer.
The news are usually pro-Palestine and they don't really show the whole picture. And it can be frustrated, but like the news in Israel don't really show the whole picture as well. They don't see the Palestine side. They don't show it. So I can understand like why it's like that.
There are outbreaks of violence when tensions are high around times of the parade during the summer when people don't have a lot to do. There's sometimes violence there, but it's never really on the scale that it's portrayed as. It's often, looking at it from the outside, you could think that, you know, we're constantly dodging bullets and everyone's being attacked every other day. And in reality, it's not like that. It doesn't have much of an impact on the day-to-day lives of the people who live there.
It's probably safer to be in Northern Ireland than it is to be in the ghettos of New York or wherever else, whereas there's an awful lot more gun crime or various things all over the world. But again, because it's such a high-profile case, that it gets a lot more press. So there you go.
I used to be part of youth councils for the Moyle area, and we took a conference and took people from different countries over, and their idea was from the outside that Northern Ireland was what you see in the news just in Belfast, and I think you don't always see sort of outside the troubled areas and conflict areas, that you don't really see the sort of coastlines and the tourist places, that some places haven't really got that much trouble and conflict in them, and when you grow up here you're somewhat removed from that, that it probably doesn't give the overall picture, just those main areas that it focuses on when there's quite a larger area in Northern Ireland.
Most of the Palestinians that I have met outside of Palestine, they are willing to come back. They are willing to live in Palestine. Most of them, they never been to Palestine, but they are really willing to come back to Palestine. And they tried many times to get the visas from the Israelis embassies and all over the world, but they never got the visas or permission to go there, you know.
You've had Catholics and Protestants going like this for so long, saying and suddenly all of a sudden people are turning around and going, who are you? Who are you? And why are you here? And what are you about? And I think that experience of other is often very, very important. In some ways, because we're so concentrated on focused on our own little piece of land, we don't have, a lot of people don't always have an opportunity to turn around and look outside their own little boxes, which I think is often very, very important. And with that come new ideas, also new problems and new, like there's been an awful lot of racist attacks and various things in Belfast, which is another issue which I think is very much needs to be key, rather than, I think a lot of the kind of social work will shift towards that slightly over the next few years of dealing with some of those aspects of people integrating into society.
Croatians like to think of themselves as part of the Europe, but the Europe and the rest of the world think of us as still a communistic country, part of the Balkans. And it's not a nice way of putting it, but I think that people sometimes think of us as cave people, that we live in caves and we don't use computers, we don't know anything.
I think it's brilliant that people in Northern Ireland have stopped looking inward and have started looking outward into Europe, because when there's conflict in a country, there's a tendency to focus only on the smaller picture, on two groups of people that are conflicting, and think this is all there is to it, you know, forget about the rest of the world. I think now that Northern Ireland's come out of a conflict, they're starting to realise there's more to the world than just their own country and their own people, that there's lots of other conflicts that, you know, we could help people resolve, that there's many other issues that will affect us in time, or, you know, are affecting us now and that need to be looked at a global scale. A lot of politicians are realising this now, and Europe is very big, and people who were trying to encourage us to go into Europe 20 years ago are now hailed as heroes, because they were right all along. Even people were saying, you know, deal with your own country first. It's better to look outward than inward.